Welcome back to Previously Prohibited. I'm Jenin Eunice here with my co-host Melissa Whitty. I think we're on episode 15 now, and I also will apologize for the poor quality of my camera today. This is not a normal situation. My toddler spilled coffee all over my Mac, and so I'm using a backup computer. Hopefully the computer will be working next time, and there'll be a better image, or I'll have to order a new one, but that's a different story. So Melissa, over to you.
Thanks. Welcome back, guys. If you could hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Thank you so much for your comments. We've been getting a lot more on the videos and truly appreciate that. So if you're following us on Rumble, on Spotify, on YouTube, if you could just engage with it a little bit, it really does help in the algorithm a lot. So no worries, Jenin. You know, when a couple years ago, I had a Chihuahua who actually peed on my laptop. And you know, you want to hear a funny story is when the whole Hunter Biden thing happened, right? So this was actually about 10 years ago that happened. And I took the laptop to a laptop repair, and then I never went and picked it up again. Like, I just left it there. I just abandoned it. And of course I didn't have any, international scandals or, no pornography, nothing like that, homemade pornography on the laptop. So there was really nothing but old baby pictures of my daughter that were already in the cloud that I just wasn't worried about. And I just got a new computer. But when everybody's like, who leaves their laptop at the IT repair shop? Well, some people do that. So I know all about that. It sucks so bad.
Yeah, I'm hoping it's not damaged. But the worst thing about it was I think he deliberately kind of poured it on the laptop. But he's only 13 months old. He doesn't know what he's doing. So.
He's like, well, he was experimenting. He's like, this looks fun. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So we wanted to talk today about, we wanted to start off with something different. I know a lot of people are going to roll their eyes at this, except I really don't think you should. I think you should hear me out.
Yes, hear us out on this, please. Because I rolled my eyes a little at the topic too, but the more I read about it, the more I don't think one should roll their eyes.
Right. Yeah. And we are, of course, talking about whether or not the French president is married to a man. Okay. The Bridget Macron scandal, who Candace Owens, if you follow her, you know that this is something she's been talking about for a little over a year now. She has not given up on it, no matter how much criticism and flack she has gotten from, quote unquote, mainstream or reputable journalists, saying basically that she's muckraking. It's gossip. It's nothing. It's a lie. It's pushing. I don't even know.
Reputable journalists like the propagandist Barry Weiss.
Exactly. Barry Weiss specifically attacked her over this.
And it's actually, of course, everything about our episodes always goes back to Israel-Palestine. But of course, part of the thing is that Candace Owens has come out against Israel's actions in Gaza, and so a lot of people who are for the actions in Gaza use this to basically say that she's not a serious journalist. She thinks Bridget Macron is a man. Ha ha ha. Obviously, she can't be taken seriously. So you also shouldn't believe her on the Middle East. So that's where some of that comes from.
Exactly. And except the thing that I've just found so interesting about this is that Candace hasn't let it go, right? She did it last March. She rolled it out last year, and she, at the time, it was very controversial, but she said at the time, I would stake my entire career on the fact that Bridget Macron was born a man. And she could have just let it go after that, right? She moved on. And then what happened is that in November, she was contacted by a journalist in France who said basically that he had all of the proof. He could prove it, that Bridget Macron was a man. So Candace flew to France and collected this data, did a couple sit-down interviews with this man, Xavier Rousseau, I believe his name is.
Yeah.
She comes back a week later. She gets a letter from the from the president of France, but it's actually from an attorney acting on his behalf. He hired an American law firm to threaten her with a defamation suit if she published the information that she was given um, by this attorney, or excuse me, by this investigator,
the French journalist. Yeah,
correct. Yeah, sorry. And so she didn't. Instead, so they specifically threatened her with defamation, right? And she explained this on her show on Friday, that the problem for them was they kind of opened up, at least according to her. So I really wanted to get Jenin's take on this. According to Candace, these attorneys opened up an avenue for her, Candace, to directly question the French ambassador, or excuse me, the French president, about him and his wife, their relationship. And she submitted 21, almost all of them were yes or no questions directly to him, because according to Candace, in order for them to file a defamation lawsuit, they would have to prove malice, prove that she knew that she was lying and she said these things anyways. And so she submitted the questions to them, and of course they did not answer. So now she's proceeding with her original reporting. And so I wanted to get your take on that. Is that typical for them to establish contact like that, but without providing anything to refute what I would think if you're going to establish contact with Candace, you would say, we know X, Y, and Z. This is why this isn't true.
Right. Well, with the caveat that I'm not an expert in this area, I do First Amendment law. So obviously there's some overlap because, defamation sort of arguably infringes on free speech, or there's some tension there, right? Because, you can't just say whatever you want if you're sort of ruining somebody's life intentionally. I think that's the idea behind defamation. So I haven't actually done a defamation case. I know a little bit about it insofar as it relates to First Amendment law. I would say it's certainly unusual for a foreign president to threaten a lawsuit against an American journalist. I don't know that I've ever actually even heard of that. And you would think that they would provide some reasons why this was actually false. Again, I haven't actually, defended a defamation lawsuit, so I don't want to say that for certain. But it strikes me as odd that you wouldn't at least try to submit some proof to dissuade her from doing this, which was part of what she said. And I mean, she made a very good point that if they want to make a legal case out of this, literally, then she's going to have the opportunity to challenge it. So if it is true that Brigitte, I guess you say in French, Macron was born a man, biological male, then she'll probably have the opportunity to show that if they do pursue legal charges.
Yeah, and so I was interested. I listened to the opening that Candace did was interesting because she was kind of just laying out. She laid out the basics of this letter that she was sent. She shared the questions, and then she kind of started laying out a lot of I don't want to say coincidences. It was more so associations that the Macrons have with these very questionable people. And for those who don't know, the relationship with Emmanuel and Brigitte Macron is already controversial because she is 24 years older than him, and she was his teacher in high school. That's how they met. So she was a teacher. She was a theater teacher at this private school in Amaze, I think it is, France. And he was 15. And according to her, I guess in some biography or some interview that she gave, she first saw him when he was 14. And she said that she fell in love instantly, which is, of course, is really creepy, right? Because she was 39 at the time.
Right.
Old enough definitely to be his mother.
Yeah, it definitely strikes some people as something that's more, of course, this is not proof in and of itself, but it strikes people as something that's more likely for a man to do to a boy, than but although Candace did mistakenly say she couldn't, I guess she probably couldn't think of a single case. There was a case people may remember from, I think, the 90s. I was a kid, maybe it was the 80s. A woman who was, but I think she was like in her late 20s, and she had sex with her middle school student,
Mm-hmm.
and ended up getting pregnant. And I
Mm-hmm.
think gave birth in prison because she ended up serving time for statutory rape. So she was definitely a biological woman.
Oh
There
yeah,
wasn't
yeah,
any
no,
doubt about that. Oh,
it
yeah,
was
I'm
a
just
really
joking.
famous case. Yeah, Mary Lou
Yeah,
Retton
Mary
was
Lou
her
Retton.
name.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. When was
I
that?
was
Was
a
that
kid.
like, yeah,
It was I was a kid. I
90 or something?
remember it was 90s because I
Yeah.
was younger than the boy.
Yeah.
I remember that, and
Yeah.
it was a
Me
huge. But
too.
I think the thing though is that people kind of pretend like what's happening with with Macron, like somehow like yeah, oh, now that they're older, it's normal. It's actually not. And the thing with the
No.
Mary Lou Retton case is that was weird.
Yeah.
Everybody agreed it was really
Yeah, it
weird.
was
Not
weird.
well,
Yeah.
everybody agreed it was totally illegal. Number one,
Yes.
she went to prison. She got out of prison. She actually became impregnated by him again.
Yeah.
She then went back to prison. So she went to prison twice for this boy at the time. And she ended up marrying him.
Yeah.
And they had a couple kids together. And then I actually had forgotten all about the case until she died a couple years ago. She died
Oh,
like
okay.
of COVID.
Yeah. Oh,
And
really? Okay.
yeah, and so then
Huh.
it like kind of came all to light, but it was always weird, right? And
Yes.
never
Yeah.
normalized. And certainly she was never going to become the first lady.
Yeah.
And that would have
Yeah.
it would have been a scandal that broke any political ambitions whatsoever, right? Because people think
Yes.
that stuff is weird. And so
Yes.
yeah, as far as like this normalization goes, it's just it doesn't happen. And the French
Yeah.
are different, we can admit that. I think they are a little bit more sexually liberated or whatnot than
Yeah.
the Puritans here in the US. But so today I was curious and I was like, let me see what I can find, right? I wanted to dig on this, and I because I was like, there has to be, and obviously I know everyone has already dug over this on both sides, but I think the thing that struck me the most was how little I was able to find
Yes.
about this woman. She
So
is like a ghost.
So this was the weird thing too. I remember I had first heard this a few years back. I don't know what set me off, and I decided to research it for like a couple hours. I was just curious, and I found some stuff, and it wasn't like enough to do an exhaustive search. I couldn't say for
Hmm.
sure one way or the other, but I was like, okay, there's some points about why Bridget Macron might actually be a man, and
Hmm.
I found myself somewhat persuaded by that argument. I tried to find those articles again and I couldn't find anything. Like everything on Google was just like about why Candace Owens or anyone else who
Yep.
floats this theory is completely insane, which always makes me suspicious. I'm like, they scrubbed Google of all the articles that actually had the evidence
Yep.
laying this out. I literally couldn't find anything.
Yep.
And
Yep.
I wanted to refresh my memory because this first episode didn't really go into the proof. It was more about laying
Hmm.
the groundwork for the strange associations and sort of I mean, we can get into this a little bit, but the Macrons have associations with a lot of pedophiles, or
Yeah.
pedophiliac imagery,
Yep.
and that's not like some crazy conspiracy, that's just
No.
fact.
Yeah. I agree. So the first thing I learned today is that Bridget Macron did not come from some like poor French family in the countryside, right? That's kind of what I assumed. Like that's why there aren't
Yeah.
that many pictures. No, she actually came from this pretty well-known chocolatier family, right? Her family owns a chocolatier in their hometown of Armenias. I have it written down somewhere. And it is it's well known. It's been around for 6 generations now. The family was very well established, and the couple of interviews, I've only seen 2 actual names of people who knew her when she was young sourced. They said she was very spoiled, right? So you have these names that are given to magazine interviews that were done about Brigitte Macron in her favor. You can tell they're done in her favor. And so she's essentially supplied 2 people that say they knew her as a child, right? And one thing that they said was that she had joined the city figure skating league in 1967, and she was on it for 3 years, right? And so I'm thinking, okay, your family has money. It's a well-established family. where are the pictures, right? Like,
Yeah.
where are the newspaper pictures that you were in? Where is your high school graduation pictures?
Yeah.
Where did you go to college? You can't find where she went to college, even though she was a
Yeah.
teacher. Okay. There's
And
no
so
pictures of her in college.
as I
Um,
understand it loosely, the theory is that she's actually her brother, right?
Jean
She
Jean
has a
Michel.
brother, yeah.
Hmm.
And there's some photos that indicate, and so it seems like around 30, when the theory is that she transitioned, he disappeared, and she's never in the same room with him, as Candace said
Right.
numerous times. Like, why doesn't she just go for a walk with him? Why didn't she? All she has to do
Right.
is go, and she would dispel this entire rumor.
Right. So we never produced, she's never produced the brother. They have said and in fact what's interesting is that there was a lawsuit that two YouTubers basically were saying the same thing that we were saying right here, and they said that the brother doesn't exist, right? And so they actually ended up losing a lawsuit. The Macrons sued them, and it's very bizarre because the only thing that they produced, from what I understand, of proof of this brother is a YouTube video that someone else took, where they say, look at this man standing in this at one of these ceremonies, look at him, this is the brother, and they circled
Hmm.
him. They said no, he did show up. So this is not a
Yeah.
man that like comes out and has ever given interviews. It's
Right.
weird too, because the rest of her family, well, I take that back, not the rest of the family, but the oldest prominent brother, the one that took over the chocolatier company, he's out there. He died in 2018. He's been he's given interviews and whatnot, but of course this was never brought up. And he was really old when he died. But again, it's very bizarre. Yeah, the nobody comes out from the family, and she's got three kids. Only one of them actually defends her ever,
Uh,
but they don't even really address. They just say this is stupid, right?
so, and the theory also is that she had the children as a biological man, so with a woman. But they are her biological children, or his, whichever it is, right?
Right. Yeah.
Is
It's
that,
very,
yeah?
I
And
think so.
who's the
It's very
woman?
weird. I don't know. There's
We
been a
don't know.
couple
Okay.
theories about who that was. Obviously there's massive holes that have to be
Yeah.
filled in, and
Either way, yes.
right.
I'm not convinced yet. Either way, so
Right. I think it's weird. I think it's
yes, there's
extremely weird. So I was like, let me see what I can find on other French first ladies. That was my thing today. I was like going, and I went through, I was looking for women of similar age, that what could I find on them? Maybe this is just a thing. Maybe the French just don't print stuff. I don't know. And so I looked up Jacques Sirac, his wife Bernadette Sirac, right? Well, I'll be damned if I couldn't find all kinds of stuff about Bernadette Sirac. All right. I found pictures of her as a child when France was under occupation by Nazi Germany. Okay.
yeah,
I feel like if I can find pictures of Bernadette Sirac when France was under occupation during, the Second World War, that I should be able to find pictures from, Brigitte, or Bridget
yeah,
Macron, during the 60s, when she's, living a pretty good life as a spoiled daughter of chocolatiers. I just feel
yeah.
like those
Or
pictures
at
should be
least
available.
70s, at least. I mean, there are pictures. My
Right.
dad was a Palestinian peasant and had no
Yeah.
running water or electricity. And I have one picture of him from when he's like 25 years old in, I guess, 1977 or something. It's
Right.
only one,
Yeah.
but
You should. And so there are of Bridget, there is, like, there's two from childhood, right? There's one of
yeah,
like communion, I guess. It's like a communion. And then there's another one, it's like this family picture, but there's serious questions about who is who, because the little boy in the picture is it's the one that looks just like her today. It's really wild. And
do you know if there's any evidence that a Brigitte Macron existed as a girl? Like, is the theory that there's a sister and we don't know where that is and she's the brother? Or is it that, like, he just transitioned into Brigitte
he
and
just transitioned. Yep.
yeah. So there was never a
Yep.
real, okay.
Right. And so you know, all of her high school records are sealed. Um, all of his, supposedly he was in the military. All of those records are sealed. They can't. They will not be released. Um, Everything is very hush hush. And so then you look and you think, okay, well, why would people? Why would they do this, right? And of course, there's a
Yeah.
million reasons why they would do this. Why wouldn't they do this? To be quite honest with you, if you believe that there are blackmail rings that run our elite. And that's actually what Candace got at the beginning on this opening episode. She talked about the Dumas scandal. And so I read about that today. And the Dumas scandal involved a man named Oliver Dumas, and he was a very prominent member of the French Intelligista, who they all go to this school. It's like the political science school. Something like five of the last seven presidents have all attended this one school. I don't have the name with me right now, but it's the French elite. It's a very, very small circle. And what happened with this Dumas scandal was a daughter or a stepdaughter of this man, as Oliver Dumas, wrote a book basically accusing him and the other elites
Right.
of being a bunch of pedos. And she was very credible. She is very credible because she happens to be the daughter of Bernard Kouchner, who is the founder of Doctors Without Borders. So this is not some like crank woman. She is,
And
in fact.
And it was published by like a major publisher, right?
It was published by a major publisher, and Dumas confessed
right
to it. He said,
to
yes,
raping,
I did. His stepson.
her brother, yeah. And also she said she was like made to masturbate in front of groups of adults when she was like 13 or something. Really creepy, weird
creepy stuff. But this is like all, but the people that she's talking about, these are the people who run France, right? These are the elites. These are their, so if the same circle, and again, this Oliver Dumas man, he was a massive backer of Macron. He huge backer of Macron. Macron was also, I didn't know this, but Macron actually started his own political party. And then was able to catapult himself into the presidency within 1 year, 13 months, which is Think about what goes into that. I'm sorry, but you have to be so well backed, so well funded to be able to do something like that. That it's really, it just doesn't happen. Okay, it just doesn't.
So. Yeah, I mean, to play devil's advocate as far as no one has come forward the other way either, right? Like, so it's kind of weird in both scenarios. Like, you'd think there would be somebody who was a witness to the first 30 years of this person's life who would be interested in some media attention or something, and could be like, I went to school with whatever, Brigitte or Jean-Michel. I can attest, but there's nothing on either side. So I would say it's odd either way. But then, and then on the other hand, I mean, if you sort of think about it from this perspective, suppose Brigitte was a man. I mean, there's no way that Macron could have risen to the position that he has, married to a trans man. So of course they would have to pretend. Of course that's not proof in and of itself, but of course they would cover up the secret with everything.
Oh yeah.
So yeah.
I mean, the whole thing is very bizarre.
Strange.
I'm looking forward to hearing what Candace has to say tomorrow.
Me too.
I feel like she's got such a huge following. To me, I just don't see her doing any of this. I trust her. I don't see her making such a big deal out of this if it was a nothing burger, right? If she couldn't actually knock it out of the park. And
I mean, we talked about this. It's an interesting question in this day and age when none of us trust the mainstream media. That's why we're doing this. And we don't all have time to go do deep dives into every single topic. So that requires you to find some people you trust. I just can't research every single thing for whatever, as many hours a day. So mine are like Glenn Greenwald. I would say I trust his takes. Max Blumenthal,
Mm-hmm.
I haven't followed Candace enough to be like, I'm totally there.
Yeah.
I still need, to do my own research on her topics, but at some point I could get there.
I think she did a great job with BLM. I really enjoyed that. She's done, she does a lot of deep dives into like pop culture, celebrity stuff.
Yeah.
Some of it I follow, but a lot of it I don't know who the people are, so I don't.
I didn't
don't
know who she was a year ago, believe it or not. I like just
Oh,
I
really?
only
Oh,
yeah, I
yeah.
only started to know who she was because of the attention over the Daily Wire thing, when she left Daily Wire because of her pro-Palestine stance, criticism
Yeah,
of
she did
Israel.
a lot of great work with BLM. She's
Mm,
done. I mean, I really enjoy her commentary in general. She's
yeah.
conservative like me, common sense conservative, but she's Christian, valued. But
Mm,
I just really took a shine to her when she stood up to for Palestinians and for Gaza, when of
yeah.
course it is, of course it's career suicide essentially. Well,
Yeah.
it is and it's not, because she's actually done phenomenal on her own as well.
Yeah.
But
But it
she
was a
took a
risk.
oh
Yeah.
yeah, and she did pay for it, right? She was
Yeah.
fired eventually. She was smeared as an anti-Semite.
Yeah.
She has taken unbelievable flack, and she has never once backed down, not one
Yeah.
single time. And so
Yeah.
I take a lot of inspiration from her,
Yeah.
because for a long time on the right, that was just, you just couldn't do that, right? You
Yeah.
just could not
Yeah.
talk about this thing. It was the third rail. You couldn't touch it. And now we see Tucker Carlson coming out.
Yeah.
Um, we but nobody did it like Candace. Like, I mean, God bless her.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
she was super brave on that.
Yeah,
And
and she
so
kind of quickly, like Tucker Carlson was very slow, and I admire him a lot, to be clear, for this. And actually, I should say he's probably one of the journalists I trust too. But
mhm.
I mean, he was very gradual. Like the first thing I heard him say was like, maybe we should ask some questions about how the Christians in the Middle East are doing. Maybe they're not doing so
Right.
well. And then it was like, and then last week he told Piers Morgan he thought what Israel was doing was evil. And I was like, oh, okay,
Mhm.
we've come a long way since let's ask some
Oh yeah,
questions.
yeah. Well, he was definitely like, he went after Ben Shapiro, or very early on. He was
Yeah.
like, why should I care about this when I've got fentanyl coming over the border? Which again
Yeah.
that's a very America first position and whatnot. And then of course he did have the pastor from the West Bank
Yeah.
on his show, which
Munther Isaac, it's funny, it's the same name as my dad. I had never known anyone
okay,
else with the name Munther. I was like,
Mother,
oh,
yeah.
yeah.
And so and he actually did that, like, I think it was
It was a
before
while
Christmas
ago.
last year. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
God bless him for that. And I mean, he took a lot of heat for that, and he never once backed down too.
No.
But yeah, there's just been a handful of them. And now what's interesting is we're seeing it's coming out a lot more. Good heavens, I saw this TikToker today, really beautiful girl. I don't even know, it's like Emily Saves America or something like that. Really, she's just a beautiful girl who she posted. She said, I have been trashing my government for 4 years. I talk crap about everyone's government.
Yeah.
No one has ever given me any hard time about that. I say one little thing about Israel, and I have been
Yeah.
attacked for days now. And I was like,
Yeah.
welcome to the club, girlfriend.
Yeah. Well, there was a long time where I was really afraid to speak up, for various reasons, professional as well as social consequences. And I was like, what can I really do? This has been going on for so long. I've lived through this many times, like, sort of having to deal with staying silent while the people around me,
Mm-hmm.
so I was just like, I'm just this little person. Nothing I've ever done before has worked. So like, why should I put myself out there? But then I realized more and more, every single person who speaks up, that inspires other
Yep.
people to speak up. It breaks the dam. And I
Yep.
can guarantee every person with a large following on social media who doesn't say anything, they agree with us, because there is no consequence, no
Yep.
negative, no downside to being pro-Israel, really. But there's a
Yeah.
major consequences for being pro-Palestine. So all of those people, I think, more and more of us speak out, more of them will, and then
They
that's how
will.
things really
Mm-hmm.
change.
Oh yeah, I mean, I get DMs all the
Me
time,
too. Yeah.
from people, saying thank you for speaking out, and it's wild. I get followed by some of these college professors,
Mm.
conservative moms. I have so many people who follow me that sometimes I will see their position, and then I can't believe that they're following me on other things, because
Yeah.
they just seem super
Yeah.
super conservative, and I'm
Yeah.
like, surely they see me.
Yeah.
Or sometimes I'll have people who, if I'm not posting about Israel, they are like immediately liking things that I
Yeah.
that I put out, right? So I know they're
Yeah.
seeing my stuff right away. So maybe they're
Yeah.
not interacting with it, but for whatever reason they haven't decided to unfollow me. It's not turning
Yeah.
them off by any means.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and a lot of the stuff that we say is people have never heard this stuff before. We have to
Yeah.
remember to be really patient, that most Americans have been subjected to just the most intense industrial propaganda
Yeah.
imaginable to humans. Okay,
Yeah.
and it takes a long time to break out of that, and
Yeah.
there's a lot of cope as far as like the atrocities that we see. I know it's frustrating for people who are super pro Palestine to think like, how do people just not see it? And you just
Yeah.
have to understand that people, they just tell themselves it's fake, right?
Yeah.
um
Yeah.
and they have all these coping mechanisms, and they have this cognitive dissonance, this wall built up, and it does take a really really long time to break down, but once you do, there's
Yeah.
no going back. It's
Yeah. Yeah.
done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So
speaking of that, yeah, we were going to talk about college campuses and what's happening there a little bit.
yeah, so I intro on that. We saw, we talked about this last episode, but Trump definitely, he signed the new anti-Semitism bill. It was really weird. It was a little bit repetitive.
Yeah.
Nothing super new for the most part. It was definitely a bone to his donors for the
Yeah.
most part. But what we saw over the weekend is this kind of fake campaign that got built up, right, by
Yeah.
all of these pro-Israel accounts, where they took this video of this Chinese national student at UCLA getting arrested last May, and they said that she had just been uh,
Deported, or
deported,
her visa. Yeah. Her
had been
visa
revoked,
revoked.
and she was being deported. And this um video, along with a very specific script, got
Mhm.
pushed out by a massive network. If you guys don't follow already, the Gen Z girl, or excuse me, Gen X girl, she did a really great job catching all this
Yeah.
stuff, because they used very weird wording. I don't know if you saw this tweet that she put together, but she made a video of it. But
I
they said,
did. Yeah.
yeah, Trump isn't playing about, right? Like I don't know, I saw that and I was like, what are,
Mm,
like a bunch of
yes.
Aussies or something? Like, what do you mean playing
Yeah.
about? And it was really weird wording, and then what happened was it all got deleted, and then they pushed out a new thing, but the whole thing is that it was fake, right?
Right.
So what are you hearing?
That about that video?
Well, no,
Oh.
about have you heard anything
Oh.
about an organized, has anybody heard anything about specific students being contacted?
No, no. And
Yeah.
I've said a couple times to DM me. I don't know, exactly what I could do right now, but I do want to know what's going on. I certainly want to know, if immigration authorities are contacting anyone. So I suspect that this is all just for show. Everybody
Mhm.
knows that like it's not going to stand up in a court of law to deport people for peacefully protesting, or even if they're rowdy, as long as they're not actually breaking the law, being violent or harassing people. Everybody knows that at Trump and all of his advisors. This is clearly to chill speech, to get students to be
Right.
kind of afraid so they don't do it. And that can be a First Amendment violation in and of itself, but
Mhm.
it's harder to show. Would have to show that you have a reasonable belief that the speech that you want to engage in might subject you to punishment, and so you're not going to engage in it. And courts, it depends. Frankly, judges just differ in sort of what they consider enough proof
Mhm.
of those things. So it depends a little bit on the judge you get. It's way harder to bring. That would be called a pre-enforcement challenge. So it's like it hasn't been applied to you yet. So that's a way harder case to win than like you're actually being deported for saying from the river to the sea, which again, I kind of doubt will happen. But
Right.
I think the whole purpose is in the chilling.
Yeah, definitely. And we saw this kind of concerted effort right away from these people.
The
First it
crazy.
was right.
Yeah.
But I wanted to share with you specifically one of them, the Batar people. They
Yeah.
actually shared exactly what somebody they characterized as this guy is a quote unquote Hamas supporter, because I wanted to see like what constituted that for them, right? And I'm sorry, guys, I'm pulling this up. Of course, I take like 64,000 screenshots a day. Um, okay. Justifying Hamas terrorism in 2023. So this is from Canary Mission, which is
Oh
a
yeah.
super, super creepy organization. One day we should do a whole. It's
Yeah.
just a psychopath organization,
Yeah.
guys. If you don't know what it is, just be very glad that you don't. But essentially what it is it's a network of people where they find people who oppose Israel in the tiniest bit, and they've been doing this for years, and they make full profiles of them, they put their faces on their page, and then they try to make them basically unhireable.
Yeah.
Right. And they've been doing this for like 10 years.
Yeah, I remember they were doing it in 2014 when I was protesting about the Gaza war then.
So here's
Look
a
at these things.
gentleman. I'm not going to say his full name, but Madaw, and they say that according to the newspaper, soon after October 7th, Madaw and leaders of an anti-Israel group at Columbia wrote a statement that said, "We remind Columbia students that the Palestinian struggle for freedom is rooted in international law under which occupied peoples have the right to resist occupation of their land." And then so that is their that's what he said. And they say uh, then they make a bunch of inferences and say if every political avenue available to Palestinians is blocked, we should not be surprised when resistance and violence break out, which is actually a very, very reasonable statement, correct? I think that's a very reasonable statement. And as I've said a million times, that all humans have a right to armed resistance against tyrannical governments. And if you are a true American patriot, you believe this in your heart and your soul. And that is the reason that we have a Second Amendment. And if you don't believe it, go take that freaking Gadsden flag out of your freaking garage. Get rid of your guns, because you are, in fact, a fraud. All right.
I will say, just so I don't get accused of being a Hamas supporter, that doesn't mean, you have the right to kill civilians or kidnap civilians. And I think
Obviously
neither
not.
of us
Yeah.
would ever countenance that. I just have to be careful since they're people
Correct.
who ruin my
Correct.
life.
Right. So. No. But I'm saying, like, quoting international law does not make you a Hamas supporter,
no,
right?
No. And I mean, what he said, he absolutely has the right to say. I don't dispute that.
Right. So I was genuinely curious. I was like,
yeah, I personally wouldn't characterize October 7th as resistance, given that, there were civilian victims too. But it's within the realm of discourse, especially given that plenty of Israelis say, all Palestinians deserve to die, or there are no innocents in Gaza, right. And, their careers are just fine. So.
Right. Yeah. For me, it's a little hard to get start clutching my pearls on that, having watched 16 months of bombing nonstop. It was really, I remember on the day, it was really, I thought it was really sad. And I did genuinely feel very sorry for the people, especially the old people. There were a lot of old people who got killed. And I thought that their deaths were really sad. Just not any more sad than the now tens of thousands of deaths that we have seen in Gaza.
Or even hundreds of thousands.
Right. Or any of the deaths that happened prior, of course, because...
Or that are happening in the West Bank now.
Right. I've watched
killing
this,
people there now.
I don't remember very many Americans getting too upset when there are, in fact, Americans getting, Palestinian Americans that get murdered in the West Bank, usually one a year. So,
Yeah.
anyways, I was just curious about what they quantified or what they classified as, quote unquote pro Hamas, and this was like the prompt. This was like the example that they were putting out
Yeah.
the Batar, and I was like, yeah, I could see why you guys need to really push this propaganda campaign pretty hard, because that is, you can't. Good luck in court,
Yeah.
because it's
Yeah.
going to go to court, and if that's the best you got, you guys are screwed, obviously. So we see this attempt to kind of conflate and really just to scare people.
Yeah, that's what it is. And so I mean Beitar is seizing on the Chinese student incident to try to scare people. That's the whole
Which
thing.
again, she was
That's the
not
whole game.
deported. Okay,
No,
just to be
no.
clear,
That's
she was not deported.
yeah,
Okay,
no, no. So that's why they made it up in order
right,
to scare to say like, see, Trump is doing this, you'd better be scared. That's the whole
right.
point of all of it, is to intimidate people into silence. And that's why we're not, we won't be silent, because we're not going to let that happen. And I'm actually surprised the people who are on Canary Mission haven't brought defamation lawsuits.
I know, you would think
It,
that
it might be because they're quoting their actual quotes, and since you have to show that there was like uh negligence, I guess if they're ascribing a characterization to you but saying what the quote is, that might not fall into the legal definition of defamation. I'm not sure.
right. I mean, they're reading this whole statement that they put out. I mean, they're skirting it pretty. I mean, they're walking a real
Yeah.
fine line. It's probably not
Yeah.
worth the. At least in this one instant, I haven't looked at their whole page, but
Yeah.
maybe not worth the time and the money that it would cost. When I don't know if you would get a guarantee or not. They probably, I would
Yeah.
think, still have the right to just pull the page down and reword it.
Yeah.
First.
Yeah. Yeah. So have you followed this Hague group thing at all? The 9
Mm-mm.
countries that have formed this Hague group. So this is
No,
like
this
some
just
hope.
came
Yeah.
across. Yeah, that
Yeah,
just came across my thing. I was kind of consumed with the French today.
yeah, totally. And no, it was 4 countries in the global south, including South Africa, Bolivia, various, I can't remember all of them off the top of my head, but they're forming what's called the Hague Group in order to enforce international law against Israel. So first of all,
Okay,
one of their goals is to ensure that Netanyahu and Gallant are subject to arrest if possible.
good.
And also that no weapons shipments to Israel can get through to block them. So like they won't allow them to dock at their ports, that
Good.
kind of thing.
Nice,
And I
nice.
was, just really another demonstration that the sort of America first or the American driven foreign policy is over. Like I mean, the US has completely embarrassed itself by allowing, not just allowing, but supporting, paying for an open genocide while pretending to care
Right,
about international law. Now we've lost all credibility in the international
right.
community. And so these countries that have, nothing close to what we do in terms of power, money, strength in the world, are
Right.
now left with trying to uphold the international world order. But good for them, and I'm heartened to see this, and I hope that they're inviting more countries to join. Hopefully, they get stronger and stronger, and the West knows that it can't. The West has sent the message that it can't just countenance this impunity.
Right. Yeah. So I think you see basically, especially I don't know if you saw with Trump pulling out of USAID, he
Yeah,
defunded that today. That's a very controversial move. I support it. I think
yeah,
USAID has been pretty atrocious. If you look into some of the stuff that they did around Gaza, if you look into some of the stuff that they've done around the AIDS epidemic in Africa,
mm,
basically using the entire continent of Africa as one giant pincushion for big pharma. I am not a fan whatsoever. They funded Wuhan. I was happy
mm,
to see it. It's definitely
yeah,
defunding an arm of the CIA, which is interesting, right? And I don't know. A lot of people are drawing a lot of inferences off of it. I haven't made up my mind totally of his reasoning why he's doing a lot of weird stuff that I
yeah,
don't quite understand. But I think he's really setting up. If he is withdrawing, is setting up the stage for a retreat of U.S. dominance around the world. Essentially, is what he's doing,
That's
and
what it looks like
that's
to me. Yeah.
it.
I
Does
mean,
it
we'll see.
on the surface? That's exactly what it looks like. But the idea that this beast is just going down so easily is really it. It just doesn't happen like that, right? I don't
Yeah.
trust it. It's all happening a little too easily. And
Yeah.
so that's why I'm like, I just have to see.
Yeah.
Everybody wants an opinion, and I can't give you one because there's something else going on here, and I just don't know what it is.
Yeah. It's the same with the
So,
plane crashes.
yeah, which
Like,
are,
what's going on there? But
well, yeah, I think we're at what, 3 now, 3 and 5 days.
it's crazy.
It's
I've had a long fear of flying that I kind of got over. At some point in my career, I was flying like every week, so I was like, I just have to get over it, and I did
mhm.
because I was flying so frequently. But I haven't flown that much since Zane was born, and now with this, I'm like, oh my god,
I
like
know.
it's rearing its head again. I don't think I'm going to be able to get on a plane for a while.
Oh no. I don't have a fear of flying. I just hate flying.
Yeah.
Hate the time. I hate airports. I hate everything about it.
Oh well,
So
that's
I feel like claustrophobic, but it's not like
well
a
in the
fear. It's just I
plane,
just hate
but
it. Yeah.
yeah, I don't. So that
I
I
get
don't mind as much if it's a short flight, but
yeah. I don't know. So I know everyone in my family loves to travel, and I'm like, why can't we just drive there? I'm like, I am the person that's like, it's only 15 hours.
uh,
So
so it's funny. I like the airport bars, so I don't mind going to having a drink before the flight and then getting on. But
yeah, yeah. I almost missed a flight in Minneapolis once. It's the only time I've ever drank in an airport bar, and I
oh
had like 2
really?
drinks, and then I just took a nap and then fell asleep and then woke up like 3 minutes before the flight was
Oh
going to take
no!
off, and I
Oh
don't think I've ever had a
no!
drink since at an airport.
Oh
But
wow, that's my little
yeah.
ceremony, and then I don't feel as nervous for the flight. But
Well, that makes sense. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
So, all right.
Well,
Well, we will
it was,
talk to you guys soon. I know I'm really
yeah.
excited to see. I know that a lot of people are. I got so much flack for the Candace thing on
Mhm.
Friday, but I don't care. I think it's interesting, and
Me too.
I don't know. Sometimes it's fun to not talk about all of the terrible things.
Exactly.
you know.
That's why we're called previously prohibited. So
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, this was certainly probably the most previously prohibited thing out there. And I'm just going to throw out there that Macron used to be a Rothschild banker. Okay, so he's I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there. I don't know. Take what you want.
we'll get into
But
that another time.
yeah. So all right,
All
guys.
right.
Thank you so much. We'll talk to you
Bye.
soon.